You're listening to The Pilot's Portfolio, formerly called the Pilot Money Podcast. To learn more about the name change, join us in Season 2.
The less financially burdened you are on year one pay, the happier experience is going to be throughout that year. And further on, like living within your means is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about that often. And that year is 365 days long. And it is, every minute of it hurts when you are financially stressed.
You're listening to the Pilot Money Podcast, the show dedicated to guiding professional pilots towards a future of financial success and stability. Fly along with your host, Timothy P. Pope, as he provides financial planning insights and answers to your burning questions and dives into real-life stories from fellow pilots who share their successes and cautionary tales. The Pilot Money Podcast takes off now.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Pilot Money Podcast, everybody. We are glad you're here. Today's episode, we are talking about military transition and why, as a retiring veteran, you may not be as behind the eight ball as you think. So today's episode, this conversation I actually had with Nik Fialka earlier this year on his show, Ready for Pushback. And Nik was gracious enough to allow us to use this because the information is still valid, right? And it still stands. And we just had our tag here recently. And so I know the hiring slowdown is likely on everybody's mind. It looks different than it has the past 2 years. Things are just reverting to the mean. And I thought that the discussion that we had earlier this year was just, it's timely and appropriate. So for those that are regular listeners to the show, welcome back. Thanks for supporting the show. For new listeners, welcome aboard. We're glad that you're here. My name is Timothy P. Pope. I'm a certified financial planner specializing in the planning needs of the professional pilots. Guys, in case you missed it in the last episode, the name of the show is changing. And so that is still TBD. We'll announce that when we finalize the name. If you have an idea of what the name should be, pilotmoneypodcast@ceterainvestors.com. Send us a note. That email will be in the show notes. So without further ado, let's jump into today's conversation with Nik Fialka.
All right, everybody. This is Tim Pope, Timothy P. Pope, certified financial planner. He is with me today, as he is many times during the year. I like to spend some time with Tim throughout the year to talk about finances and what pilots should be thinking. And today we are talking about the military side of the house and people that are leaving the military, whether you're retiring or whether you are going to go ahead and pull chocks early and get to the airlines and pursue that dream. And so, Tim, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to have you back, my man.
Nik, glad to be back. Always good to see you and talk to you. And by the way, congratulations on a Rockstar 2023, over 100 episodes in 1 year. That's incredible.
Yeah, man. What a year. Hundreds of thousands of people listening to this show. And I'm thankful for every single pilot that does. And you are now internet famous too, because not only are you the guest on just about every pilot podcast in the sphere, but now you have the Pilot Money Podcast. Talk to me about the Money Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for that. So Pilot Money Podcast, we just launched in January, and it's specific, as the name suggests, and it focuses on all things financial planning for the professional pilot, right? So you guys do have unique careers, you have unique earning potentials, your contracts are unique to your airline, right? And so your benefits. And it's great because you've got this smorgasbord of, hey, I've got good income plus benefits as well. What does this mean for me and my family? And that's what the Pilot Money Podcast does, is help you to ask yourself the right questions to say, hey, what does this mean for me?
Yeah, that's so good. It is so good. You have this toolbox of things. You need to get yourself a headset. You need to get your bag together, but you also need to get your financial life in order. And that's one of the things that's easy to overlook because it's a little bit of a blur when you are just diving into something that is new and all of a sudden they're paying you for it and it's totally brand new. And especially for the military folks, right? So what are the things that people are thinking about and maybe succeeding in or not succeeding in when it comes to leaving the military?
Yeah. So Good question there. And I think maybe I will start with just kind of a lot of patterns that I see with guys going through military transition. When you think about flying in the military, we're always comparing ourselves to somebody else or something else, right? And so obviously when you fly in the military, your paycheck, right, you're going to be making less than the guys and the girls on the commercial side of the house. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is you're likely going to have moved a lot. So what that means is if you're married, your spouse have chosen to work less to support the family and your career as you guys move from place to place, or maybe they're not working at all. So you're feeding a family a lot of times on one income, and you're also saving for retirement on one income. And then you're very cognizant of the fact that, hey, you know what, if I was at the airlines, I might be making more, right? So all of that like rolls together. And so then guys are coming out thinking or feeling like, hey, I'm really behind. I'm really behind on the 8 ball when it comes to establishing my family financially or saving for retirement. And the one thing that I'd say is, hey, if you were retiring after 20 years of service, active, you're going to get military retirement, like the pension. So we can calm down. It's going to be okay. Great. So you've got military retirement. You probably have some VA income because of a disability rating. In the future, you can look forward to Social Security as well. So as a planner, I look at all these things. I'm saying to myself, okay, these are guaranteed income streams. And when we think about retirement planning, that's what it's all about. The reason that you're saving so much in your 401k or your Roth IRA, or you're happy about your 17% non-elected contribution, the reason that we do all those things is that when you stop earning income, we can turn that into an income stream for you. So your military pension, your VA income, your Social Security all add up to be guaranteed sources of income. And so you may need less in your retirement accounts in order to be okay. So, you asked, so I'm going to pause because I want to come back to that question about, what am I saying in terms of folks being successful or not being successful? Let me just pause there. Any question on that?
Yeah. I also think about, so when I started in 2001, one of the things that was brand new was the Thrift Savings Plan. And we call it TSP. We give acronyms to everything because we're not smart enough to really remember what the real words are. So Thrift Savings Plan is basically similar to 401k, right? They have these funds and you can take a portion of your earnings and put them in savings pre-tax. And hopefully people have started doing that right when they first jumped in and got into the military, and you elected whatever percentage of your income. And you have just, for the past however many years, you haven't even noticed it. And your lifestyle is adjusted to, and you have a solid saving habit that you have had over maybe as little as like 10-ish years, maybe as many as 30 years. Like that habit is one of the things everybody always talks to you about financial planning is you have to build those habits early. And you already have this one established, right? And so the threat, I think, is once you jump to the airline world, whatever professional aviation thing you're going to, you have to reinstall those habits so that you don't feel that bite early. It is invisible to you that you are just saving. And so I don't know. For me, when I got out, I left all my TSP stuff where it was. Do you think people should like convert that to 401ks or Roth IRAs, stuff like that? Or do you feel like that TSP fund is a smart move to keep there in the long term? How do you go about without all the caveats of like, hey, this isn't financial advice, but what do you have that conversation about?
Yeah. So that's a question we get often is, hey, I've separated from service. What should I do with my TSP? And it's interesting, like if you go out on the internet, there's a lot of folks that they love to hate the TSP, right? And there's some advisors that'll tell you like, hey, let's go ahead. You're leaving, the military. Let's go ahead and roll that TSP over. And I'm here to say not so fast, right? Because the investment options in the TSP are pretty straightforward. You got the CISF-G fund, right? So those are going to track major market indices. And in my experience, they do it with very little tracking error. And then the costs are low as well. And so for me, that's a really good thing, right? The other investment options that you have is the life cycle funds inside the TSP. And when I work with clients, we're usually using some of the others, like the ones that I just mentioned, as opposed to the life cycle fund. But if you're doing this on your own, the life cycle fund will do it for you. And so the reason that I'm not in a big hurry for you to move your TSP over is twofold. One, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Because the TSP can track its benchmarks with very little tracking error. So, and then the other reason that I'm not quick to have folks roll it over is because as a professional pilot, you will get to a point in your career, if you haven't already, where you earn too much money to contribute directly to a Roth. Okay. And the Roth election wasn't available in the TSP before 2012. So like yourself, you started in 2001. So all that money, right, was pre-tax. Now they have Roth, but chances are if you've got a little age on it, right, you've got these pre-tax dollars. So if you roll that over to an IRA and you make too much money to contribute directly to a Roth, you are going to slam shut in your face what's called the backdoor Roth strategy. And matter of fact, on the Pilot Money podcast, I just went to a deep dive of, hey, you've earned too much to contribute to a Roth. What should you do now? So for those two reasons, not to slam the backdoor Roth shut, and then also because the investments in the TSP are effective, I'm a fan of the TSP, right? Now, I will say if you are just totally bent on rolling it, you can either roll just the Roth portion or you can go to a new 401k with your employer, but I wouldn't make a pit stop at an IRA.
Yeah, it's funny. As an airline captain, right, I have been thinking a lot recently about the proper ways to manage your savings. You can always find something stupid to spend your money on, but I also have the 5 kids. So I talk with them about the importance of that. And my oldest, Frasadi, we just yesterday in the car had a conversation about, because he's got some index funds and stuff like that he loves watching. And we went through the S&P and what companies do I own? And we went through and I saw like Alphabet and Meta and all the things. And he said, oh man, this is awesome. Yeah, you get to participate in this big, huge global economy. But the being able, back to my point about being able to find the smartest ways to make your money work for yourself, because unlike every other job, the door closes at 65. Like that door is closed. And so you're either have chosen wisely or you have decided that you're going to need another job, probably being a sim instructor or something like that after the airlines say sayonara, whether it's 65 or 67 or 68 or whatever it is. That's it. Should I wait as I'm getting out of the military? There's a lot of things going on, right? About 6 months prior, probably, 18 months prior is when they start doing all their VA disability work and all that stuff. There's a lot going on, a lot thinking about a move, thinking about getting ready for an airline interview and this, that, and the other to get on your calendar. I'm sure it's hard. We actually have talked about how you can't just like, oh, I want to talk to Tim on Tuesday. Like, you got to actually look into the future because everybody wants to talk to you. So what do you tell the guys and gals getting out?
Yeah, so good question. So I tell them this, look, if you need financial planning and you need help with the transition and then with all the new airline things, there's like a blackout window where you don't want to be talking to me. And so what I tell folks is you want to start our relationship at least 3 months before your transition, or at least 3 months before your class date. That's going to give you time for us to go through the planning process, check the cash flows, project income differences, allow you to spool up, because on day one, they're your election benefits and so on, your union benefits, all these things that as a military aviator is going to be brand new to you, right? So at least 3 months before. If you miss that window, then I tell folks after training, because training is all consuming for you guys. And you don't want to be talking to me and going through all the financial planning process. In fact, you won't do it. You might start it and then say, hey, we need to hold off. So I just tell folks up front, like, look, come back after training. The few times that we chat with our clients while they're in training is usually like, hey, can you confirm that these benefit elections are correct? And this is what I want to be doing. But then you guys go back to studying. So, but you know that you are certainly leaving. Okay. So in that case, that's okay. we could still start the relationship, right? And hopefully they're working with you and your team at Spitfire to land their dream job, right? Now, I love that part of the intro, by the way. Thanks, Kate. I love that. So, but would be okay. Let's start the relationship. But if you got a class date, like we don't need to be talking a week before you start or a month before you start. It's just you're probably not going to get out of it what you want to get out of it because it takes time.
Okay, Tim. So with military retirement, and there's a lot of things going on to military retirement, right? Like if you're a reservist and you retire out, you don't join the check of the month club until you turn 60 or somewhere close to there. Mm-hmm. But if you do have the active duty retirement, you kind of get it from day one. What are the things that kind of each group should be thinking about there?
Yeah. So I think this first, right? So with the military retirement, as we mentioned before, that helps with that retirement income stream. So if you're active duty and you're getting it now, and then you're going to add your 121 job on top of that, that just increases your taxable income at the federal level. There's some states that will not tax the military retirement. That's absolutely nice. So if you're getting that, you can reinvest those dollars or you can use those dollars to support your lifestyle. And then if you're getting it a little bit later, so reservist or National Guard, age 60, like you mentioned, it's still a powerful benefit, right? So if you think about, like, for easy math, let's use $5,000 a month is what the retirement is going to be. I like to track a withdrawal rate on a retirement portfolio of about 3.5%, because I know as your planner, I can sleep at night knowing that I am not concerned at all about you ever running out of money, ever. Okay. At a 3.5% withdrawal rate. So if you're getting $5,000 a month, that's your equivalent of about a $1.7 million portfolio. So as we were talking about earlier, the reason that we put all this money in the account is so we can create an income stream in retirement, right? So that can help folks think, hey, I'm behind the 8 ball, but you add up your military retirement, you add up your VA income and your Social Security, you've got these 3 streams of income. The other thing that I would tell guys to think about, though, is as you prepare to take your military retirement, you might want to think about the survivor benefit, okay? Yes, there is a cost to that, but if your financial profile is close or similar to what I described earlier, you moved a lot, your spouse decided to support your career, maybe they worked less or not at all to care of the kids, things like that. It'd be terrible if you had no survivor benefit. And if something happened to you, you pre-deceased, and then that money just stops, right? And so, you want to be thinking about survivor benefit. And if you don't take it, then get a value on the pension and do the appropriate life insurance. You're still going to have to pay a premium.
Yeah, that actually lands a little close to home. My grandfather, he worked for General Electric forever, and he received a pension from the company, and he passed away much younger than his wife. And my grandmother, we were able to, she had dementia and all the things, and we were able to support her and find care for her based on that survivor benefit. And that, man, if we didn't have that, man, it just would have been a lot of things to jump through, a lot more difficulty that you wouldn't have to do if you already had it. And I don't want, it's always something that is hard to think about, getting old, dying, all the things, but being able to look past just this dollar value to understand what is best for you and your family, I think that's so important. What about VA disability money, right? Because you get, for those of you that are early on in this process, when you are looking to get out of the military, you can apply for VA disability benefits. And all of this is based off of kind of how you got beat up in the military and how broken they made you. And there's some serious cash involved in this that can be, and there's also secondary and tertiary benefits that are just really, really super. So what do you talk to people about with going down the VA path?
Yeah, well, the VA with your disability rating and that income, I hate that you beat up, right? I'm thankful for your service. Jay, get those 2 things out of the way.
Yeah, thank you for your service. Thank you for your taxes. We appreciate your taxes, Tim.
You're welcome. The other thing, though, is those benefits are tax-free, okay? And we like that. That tax-free money is powerful. And we didn't even talk about the fact that when you're active and you're serving, you guys usually have entitlements that result in more tax-free income that you're going to get than on the outside, right? So you kind of get whacked a little bit when you come out. But that VA income is tax-free. And there's a lot of, this kind of leads into the education. There's some states that if you have a VA disability rating, that will then help out with education for your dependents. Right. So there's a lot of strings to pull on the VA disability.
Yeah. And you should certainly look at those websites that talk about what states are most advantageous for disabled veterans, because all states are not created equal. And I lived in Texas, which has stupendous benefits for people with a VA rating. And then I moved to Georgia, which you might it's trash. It's just comparatively, I mean, it's disappointing. It is what it is. Like, I hate to be in some ivory tower, but Georgia's really crappy when it comes to VA disability and benefits associated with that. And so if you're going to choose to live somewhere, some people I know choose to commute. Some people live in Florida and commute to other states to fly primarily because of that. And Anna and I talk about it all the time, because I have my rating, and I am certainly, my other buddies that are in other states are like, oh, what about this? And I'm like, oh, not here in Georgia. So that's important.
Yeah.
Some states are great. And I'll leave it kind of at that. All right. So the other thing that they have is GI Bill too, right? Should they burn all their GI Bill on flight training? Should they keep it for their kids? How do you make this decision?
Well, so on flight training, so then that suggests that you're a rotor guy and need to transition, right?
Or a never guy, a never haven't flown guy.
Or a never guy. That is also very fair. That's a tough one, because your ability to transition and go to the airline, stay healthy and fly the airplane, that is your primary wealth builder. And then eventually your wealth builder will be all of the great decisions and investments that you've made along the way. So when you put it like that, hey, should they burn it on themselves for their own training? I approach that fairly circumspectly because of what I just said. You got to get it. You got to get to where you're going to support your family. Now, let's assume that you've flown fixed wing and you're going to the airlines and you have this GI. Then you could choose it to, get a master's for yourself or support your spouse or whatever. I will say that the GI benefit is the post 9/11 GI benefit is extremely valuable, because it looks at paying for 36 months versus a dollar amount. So when we think about the cost of education and how that increases over time, it does something dumb. I hope it changes by the time my 2-year-old is ready to go. But cost of education has been skyrocketing over the last 20 years. So that benefit of 36 months is extremely valuable if you've got some kids to spread that around. Now, if you're like me and Nick, we got more than 1 or 2 kids in tow, right? We're probably still finding ourselves looking at 529 plans or the prepaid state plans. But I you brought up the GI Bill, and I'd say, hey, this is another tool in your toolbox. If you're in the military, you haven't used it yet, and you're thinking about your financial planning, you're thinking about retirement planning. In this case, you're thinking about education planning. This is another valuable tool. Don't go to waste.
Whatever you can pay for to make, yes, I get it about if you are using the GI Bill to make yourself a better asset, you can get a better job because you use your GI Bill, then do it. If you're doing it to just get a master's to have a master's and you're already an airline pilot, I suffer to see the value in that. And so I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying take a broader look at the people that are attached to you and how. And especially if there's a bunch of littles that you're going to have to sort out and they all want to go to some school. I look at mine, I'm like, all right, which one of you 5 is not going to be smart? That's the one that's going to get the GI Bill.
That's funny. But to your point, I've heard of folks saying yeah, I got this GI Bill, but we used it for my spouse to get a master's degree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Well, but I think that goes back to the point that you just made. It's is that the best spend of the dollar? Yeah.
Is it? Maybe that opportunity for that master's is really going to propel that person to much better income level. And then it's a no-brainer. So I'll get off my weird soapbox and you guys can cast stones at me as you wish. Let's talk about all the great benefits, why you should join the military after you get out and you're disillusioned and you've got your tattoo on your shoulder that shows what you did in the military. One of the greatest things that I think there is the VA home loan. And I love that. I love Marty Medvey and Trident Home Loans. They've helped me with my VA mortgages, but there's some quirks in there that are really beneficial. Will you talk about that a little bit?
Well, the VA home loan and the 0%, right, down payment.
That's right.
That's huge. That is huge. And now what I ask clients to do is ask themselves, I love this benefit, right? But I ask themselves like, hey, just because I can do 0%, does it mean I should? And that question has become increasingly more relevant now that mortgage rates have gone up,
for sure.
right? If this was 3 or 4 years ago, I'm like, sure, you can do it, right? But now that mortgages have gotten more expensive, I want folks to think about going into the next home. So when you have recently transitioned from the military, right? Like I said, you've worked with Nik and his team, you've got your dream job, you're moving in base, and you're also on year one pay.
Man, that's a tough time.
Okay. That's a really tough time. And my thought on the VA home loan is if all of those factors are true and the home that you're buying is squarely within your affordability range, knock yourself out. Use the 0%, right? Because it's squarely within your affordability range. However, if that scenario is true and the only way that you can afford that home is with the 0%, then I'm going to say, maybe let's slow down, right? I'm going to want you to put some money down, maybe from a home that you just sold, to give yourself some more wiggle room. Or maybe we're thinking about delaying the home purchase and we're renting for a year or two. And I know military guy wants to think about that. I talk to them all the time. They've moved all their careers. The spouses are done with moving. They just want to be done. I get that. But should I stretch myself and throw all my eggs in on one basket on year one pay? Or do I wait until year two, maybe year three, and get the home that I'm really going to settle in? I'm really, it's going to be, for me and my family kind of thing. So those are the things I think about when reaching for the 0%.
The less financially burdened you are on year one pay, the happier experience is going to be throughout that year. And further on, like living within your means is so, so important. And I talk about that often. And that year is 365 days long. And it is, every minute of it hurts when you are financially stressed. And you don't want to be thinking about that and hoping that the captain picks up dinner. And you fly with me, she certainly is. But
well, there's that. And if you're in year one pay, you are not furlough proof.
Oh, yeah.
There's things that are outside of your control that could put you in a really tight spot in this industry.
Yeah.
And so, just from a risk management.
Also, you could not be successful in training and be looking for another job. I know plenty of people that have been in that situation and nothing is guaranteed. And you are on probation with that company. Maybe you make a bad Facebook post. Maybe you say something to somebody that rubs them the wrong way and they can cut you loose. And so you are like, being on probation is a no kidding kind of thing. And the furloughness of things, you don't want to pull out that furlough flute and hear it singing your song, right? Shout out to Max and Dylan.
That's right.
So yeah, man, that's so important. And I want to circle back because you and I, for those of you watching this on YouTube, you probably saw a weird glitch where we had a conversation and then it kind of switched over. We had a problem with the recording and we were in this great part of the conversation about what's going on at Southwest right now. And Southwest, most of you probably know, this just happened a day or two ago when we're recording this, but most of you probably know that they're not hiring this year and they have rescinded CJOs and they put people in the pool, and 2024 is over for people that were going to Southwest, much like the poor folks that are still in the pool at FedEx, whether they've moved on or haven't moved on. And not just people there that are waiting, but also people that are on year one pay that all of a sudden they hear the music has stopped and they're going to be at the bottom of the seniority list for this foreseeable future. And so what do you say to those people?
Wow. So that's news that we're dealing with in our practice right now. There's two pods come to mind immediately. One had his absent at Southwest, and then you hear this, and it's going to have to, actually three come to mind. It's going to have to pivot right? One's thinking about doing some Part 91 stuff. The other ones we haven't worked through it yet. And I think this just leads back to some of the conversations we were just having about risk management, right? Like, you crawl, you walk, you run kind of thing. And the same thing, if you follow that process financially, I can't guarantee. In my industry, we can't guarantee anything, but I assure you, your rewards will be sweet. So if you kind of understand where you are in your airline career and what that means financially for your family, and then you behave accordingly and make decisions accordingly, leaving yourself lots of wiggle room. When a Southwest stops hiring, you're going to be able to pivot. Is it going to be a speed bump? Yes, but it's not going to be the end of the world, right? And then another one that we were working through, we started in October or September or sometime last year. And he started looking at 3 airlines, applications in, and 2 airlines kind of took care of themselves, Southwest being one. And then that third one is where he's accepted a position. And so we did all the work on the front end and we built in the contingencies. And I think just like you hear in investing, hey, diversify. I've heard you guys say on your show, the time where you can just put in one app to your airline of your choice, that's over. You're going to have to put in multiples, and then who calls you is where you're going to pick up the phone, and that's where you.
Yes, and I'm sorry if you don't if you're really hoping to live in Fort Worth and fly out of Love Field, it's probably not going to happen right now. But the financial picture, it'll be okay. Like, this too shall pass. You just be pragmatic, be practical, like come into your family and find out the ways, like write your budget, figure out the ways you can cut spending and see where it is. And don't do anything crazy. Don't do anything dramatic. Call Tim, get on the schedule. You need to give him a couple weeks heads up. He can't talk to you today, but he'll talk to you soon. Yeah, Tim, I want to make sure I've covered all the things we need to cover. What are we not talking about?
Well, there's one more, and it's TRICARE.
TRICARE.
Yeah. Is there something that you want to think about, particularly if you've done 20 years, right? Like the option, hey, TRICARE for life and things like this. And the premiums on TRICARE is pretty affordable, and it's treated you well. And so that's one of the questions, hey, should I keep TRICARE as I transition out? And it really depends, right? A couple of things that come to mind about what it depends on is, what's your family's healthcare need? What's the healthcare options at your new employer? And then where you live, do they have sufficient service providers that accept TRICARE that's going to work for what you need? So those are the things. Now, just know if you elect to keep TRICARE, it's going to make you ineligible for things like an HSA. Okay. And that HSA account, it's the only account out there that has the triple tax benefit, right? When you put money in, it's tax deductible. As you invest the dollars, it grows tax-free. And then when you use it for qualified medical expenses, it comes out of the account tax-free. So over a 20-year career, if you have a family, right, and you're putting in $8,300, that could be fairly substantial. Now, the thing is, TRICARE, it doesn't cover long-term care. So you talked about your grandmother having dementia. That's a real thing. My mother-in-law has Alzheimer's and lives with us. It's a real thing, folks.
Yeah.
TRICARE doesn't cover that, but your HSA could pay for long-term care policy premiums, right? So it's just something that you want to weigh out of where you are in your career, what your family's needs are, what your healthcare. I mean, if you're at NetJets and your healthcare premium is $0 and you have access to an HSA, it's like, why am I not contributing to that? So, it just weighs it out. And it's really, when we think about personal finance, that's the thing. It's all personal. There's a lot of ratios and rules of thumb and all of these things, but it's all personal, and it really revolves around you and your family and what your needs are, and to make it all work. So that'd be the last benefit that I'd say is, is a pocket, think something in your pocket there as a transitioning military. It's a question we get all the time. And the answer is, it depends on a number of things.
I love it, man. I love it. And you're right. Personal finance is so personal, and everybody's got a unique case. So, dude, thank you for coming and spending time with us. Thank you for what you do with the Pilot Group. We appreciate your knowledge. And Pilot Money Guy podcast, man, check it out if you haven't already started listening. I know a lot of you do. It's great. Just great information. I love it. And you'll hear me and Anna, my lovely bride, on there very, very soon.
That's right. Yeah, we had a lot of fun recording that. So yeah, thanks for the shout out. The Pilot Money Podcast, guys, come check us out. And thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate what you're doing. It's almost a public service, man. It was just all of the information aggregating that you're doing for all the pilots. I talk to a lot of people who listen to your show and they reference you. So keep it up, man.
I'm glad. All right, pilots. Thank you, Tim. You're the man. We're happy to have you. Thank you for being part of our little family. All right, Tim, I appreciate all this great information. I appreciate everything you've given to the pilot group that you are always contributing to. I hear you on all the podcasts. You're making your rounds in the aviation network. And now with the Pilot Money Podcast, which is my favorite financial planning podcast. It's just great. I love watching and listening and hearing your cool guests. And spoiler alert, Anna, my bride, and I are on an upcoming episode. So definitely tune into that. You'll hear our terrible financial decisions. And so Pilot Money Podcast, Pilot Money Podcast, Pilot Money Podcast. Tim, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. I waited 3 years to have Anna on the show. So I was very excited to have that, and your listeners appreciate it. So thanks for having me on, and I appreciate what you are doing for the pilot industry as well.
So that brings us to the debrief section. The first thing that I want you to think about is that your military retirement is kind of like a superpower, right? So every $40,000 that you're receiving per year in pre-tax income is about $1 million you don't necessarily need in an investment account. Well, I know during the show, I used a more conservative estimate, but you get the picture. That guaranteed income stream is money that you didn't have to save up in your TSP or airline 401k to turn on for income for yourself. I would say just be sure to solve for the survivor benefit election, right? So whether you pay for the SBP or you get an independent life insurance policy, you'll want to complete the due diligence for your family. Make sure you understand what makes sense. You complete those numbers and then execute. So your military retirement is a superpower. So think of it that way. The second thing I want you to think about is use your tools wisely, right? So the VA loan is an awesome benefit. It allows you to put down 0% as a down payment to get into your next home. Many of you, after you retire from the military, you're going to get picked up by the legacy carrier of your choice, right? You're going to be awarded a base that you say, well, maybe I want to live here. Interest rates are coming down, which is a good thing. So the question is, should you move to your dream home and use the 0% down payment feature in year one, right? Even if you have your military retirement coming in. And the answer is it really depends. So I agree 100% with Nick that the less financially burdened you are in year one, the happier the experience will be. And so this is another area that I advise clients and say, hey, let's make sure this makes sense for you before jumping into it. The third thing that I want you to think about, this is just a know before you go, is as you transition out of the military into the airlines or business aviation or whatever, expect a higher effective tax rate, okay? Eventually and over time, right? So when you're in the military, you receive certain entitlements that give you tax-free money, which is, we love that. We like tax-free money or income. When you retire, usually you're going to notice your paychecks don't go as far, right? So your BHA and your BSA, any other entitlements that you were getting, the special pay that was tax-free, you're no longer getting that, which means a greater percentage of your dollars are being taxed. And so that just, as you look through your pay stub and you see all the deductions, you're just going to notice it that, hey, doesn't necessarily go as far. And so know before you go, expect that and plan for that. So that's going to do it for us today, folks. Thanks for joining this episode of the Pilot Money Podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for joining this episode of Pilot's Portfolio. If you found this information helpful, spread the word and share it with a pilot buddy. Or if you have questions and there's something that you would like to hear discussed on the show, send us an email. You can find the address in the show notes. For those of you who are ready to learn how we help professional pilots with their financial planning needs, schedule an appointment. Until next time, keep the shiny side up, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Pilot's Portfolio is hosted by Timothy P. Pope. Timothy P. Pope is principal owner of 360 Aviation Advisors, 360 Aviation Advisors is a registered investment advisory firm regulated by the state of North Carolina in accordance and compliance to the securities laws and regulations. 360 Aviation Advisors does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through Pilot's portfolio. The information provided is for informational purposes only and may not be suitable for all investors and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. All investments involve a degree of risk, including the risk of loss.